Stratton, executive producer and game director of Doom at id.
So one of the big things we're seeing at QuakeCon with Doom is Doom VR. So can you talk about some of the challenges that you guys faced bringing Doom to virtual reality?
You know, it's interesting because it's a totally different experience. I mean, so you really have to kind of start there. You have to put the headset on and figure out what it means. For Doom, you know, it's a super fast-paced game. You're doing, you know, these really fast synced glory kills, and when you try to do those with VR, you basically want to throw up because it's so fast. But really, like, what's been fun is seeing the team that's working on that kind of just take the essence of what we have in the world and our creatures and the amazing tech that the guys built, which are all just perfect for VR, and start to solve the problems. One of the things that we're showing here that's different than what we showed at E3 is a kind of a new movement mechanic through the world that people are really reacting well to, and it even takes some of the elements, like when you kind of shoot the line out to show where you're going to move, it slows time down a bit, so you can actually use that with your guns in combination to kind of have this really cool, almost bullet time dynamic that's happening, and it was very similar to like the weapon wheel in the full game. So we're really kind of doing almost like a pretty public R&D project with this, where we're trying a lot of different things, taking it to shows, E3 here at QuakeCon, getting people's feedback, and figuring out what the future of Doom VR is.
Yeah, I kind of described it as a proof of concept for FPS and VR. Let's talk about teleportation some more. It seems like that is the going to be a standard operating procedure for Locomotion in VR right now, because we're all tethered. Can you talk about what the challenge was? Doom is such a fast-paced game. What was how were you guys able to adapt it with teleportation to make it still fun and fast-paced, but at the same time not nausea-inducing?
Yeah, I think we probably still have a little ways to go with it. It's funny because teleportation is such like a fictional part of Doom as it is, so it kind of works really well from that perspective. In the stuff that we're showing here, they added in a component where you kind of you point to where you want to go with the teleportation control, and then as you hold it, it kind of creates an arc to allow you to go up higher to higher elevations, and verticality is a really big part of Doom, you know, as it is. So navigating our worlds requires some level of ability to move up and down pretty quickly, and that I thought that was a genius move. I think Shale and Mark came up with that as they were trying to solve those problems. So you know, we have fantastic shooting. Our creatures, the level of detail that our team puts into the world, it just makes the VR experience amazing. I mean, it makes it I wish everybody could try, because if you've played Doom and then you play it in VR, you just can't believe the level of detail. It almost feels like stuff was up-resed, which it really wasn't. It's just because you're right there and you're looking around it and you're getting up close to it and looking, you know, kind of in every crack and crevice, you see things that you just don't from a regular experience. So we're really trying to build on all that stuff to create this this kind of new take on Doom for VR, rather than just make a port of Doom for VR.
Yeah, and you used a lot of the same assets. What kind of tweaks did you have to do to the game engine to allow it to function in VR? Was it really just a function of stereoscopic imagery, or was there more to it? Did you really have to go in and do some other stuff to make Doom work in VR?
So I'm not a programmer, so there's a lot to it, but for the most part, that's one of the other nice things, is that the tech is very well kind of architected to move to VR. You know, the stereoscopic rendering absolutely was probably the biggest hurdle to get over. But the game, you know, already runs at 90 plus frames per second, you know, on that good hardware, and that's critically important. And then Vulkan, honestly, the work that we did to bring it to Vulkan, that absolutely is also very important. I think Vulkan and VR are a really natural combination, and the fact that, you know, we're one of the first AAA games on Vulkan is going to, I think, just help us have that lead and maintain that lead in the VR space as well.
And are you guys collaborating with other studios at Bethesda in development of VR? Because I know Fallout's working on VR stuff. Are you guys talking to each other when you guys were making Doom VR? Did you kind of knock on their door and say, "Hey, what do you guys think? What should we be doing?"
Absolutely, there's a ton of collaboration. I can't really go into the specifics of it, but it is definitely it is and has been a Bethesda initiative for a while now. It was actually really interesting to go to E3 this year because we had VR at E3 2012. We were shown Doom 3 BFG and I mean we won several Hardware of the Show awards because nobody else was doing it. And then you go to E3 this year, and it's like it's around every corner. So it's I feel like we've been a big part of it for several years now, 4 years now at a minimum. To have that kind of transformation, and have Bethesda and us really continuing to lead is fantastic. So yeah, a lot of collaboration between the teams with the Fallout stuff and the Doom stuff. It's been really nice.
It's funny that you mentioned 4 years ago because one question I wanted to ask you is, it was John Carmack said when he was leaving id that part of his decision was that he was really passionate about developing stuff for VR. He felt that he couldn't do it at id. When you guys announced Doom, when I saw that Doom was coming to VR, I was like, is this a message to him, or were you guys just gonna do this anyway? Like, it just seemed odd that he would say such a thing, and then you guys clearly have been working on this for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly can't speak to anything what John thinks or says, but we create games, we create worlds. To a certain extent, what we do all the time is create virtual reality in some sense or another. So, I don't know because certainly again we were leading. He was there back in 2012 and even prior to that with other initiatives that we've been involved in and Bethesda's been involved in. So it's just it's been something that for a long time the company has been passionate about. Has felt is a real opportunity, and it's fun to really see that taking hold with what we're doing here.
And let's talk about the other VR platforms for a second. Are you guys going to be supporting Doom VR on like PlayStation VR or any of the other HMDs?
We're fairly, like, the way the technology is set up and everything. It's fairly agnostic. We've been using the HTC Vive headsets for E3 and here, but we're not really tied to anything in particular, and I'm sure we'll continue to look at all the possibilities as we move forward.
And can you talk about how the innovation in the human interface device, like the Vive controllers, for instance, have allowed you to bring something to reality? Because when you pick up the plasma rifle for the first time in this demo, it feels amazing, Just a year ago or 2 years ago, these controllers didn't exist. Can you talk about how innovation in human interface devices kind of allowed you guys to finally do this?
Yeah, honestly, I've come to this much more as a consumer, because we have Robert Duffy, our CTO, has been leading a lot of the charge on the VR side, and we have a number of developers that have been working on it. So I get to be the one that kind of comes in and tries it. I'm not necessarily always helping solve all the problems, which has been great because you just come in, and I have the same experience. Like, you pick up the controller, and then you have a plasma gun or a pistol in your hand, and you're pulling the trigger, and you get to look at it like this. And in the Fallout one, I think it's really cool that the Pip-Boy you kind of get to take a look at. I think that in and of itself, those two controllers with the Vive, it adds such a level of immersion that is just tremendous. I mean, it really changes. It's funny. It's like everything with VR. Your mind kind of shifts into the reality of that. And it was fun to watch people at E3 because we had these booths that they were playing in, and there was glass on the one wall, so you could stand there and watch people. And there were people like going straight up like a Matrix, like dodging and turning and shooting like this, and like throwing grenades. And you almost become the action star, that we try. We always talk in Doom. It's about creating a power fantasy for the player. And when you put on that VR headset, I mean, it is the ultimate version of the power fantasy, because you get to hold that gun out and you see the gun and you see the shooting, and the guys are like right up on top of you. It's a fantastic experience and a whole new way to look at the game, and it's super exciting to be a part of that.
And you had mentioned at E3 how we saw a ton of HMDs on the show floor. Can you talk about where you think the industry's at in VR, like what you think the total addressable market is, and how you look at that when making a decision about development for VR? Because it's not like there's 20 million headsets out there. There's, I don't know how many 100 million PCs out there. Can you talk about how, from a business standpoint, you guys look at it? And are we going to see Doom VR? Will I be able to buy it? Or is this just a proof of concept?
I think we're at that point in VR where there's a lot of people thinking about all the angles, the business ramifications. It's fun to be a developer from this perspective, because we get to think about, like, what's the experience? It's like, I think it's dangerous. People should be thinking about the install bases and all that kind of stuff, but from our perspective, we're always about just creating the coolest experience you can, to a great extent, and that's particularly at the beginning of a kind of a paradigm shift in kind of games or hardware, or having something that comes about like this new piece of hardware. You really just kind of have to let your mind open up to the possibilities creatively, and then solve some of the problems, and figure out how that fits. So that's really kind of it is kind of a public R&D project for us to an extent, to have VR, to take it to shows and show people the possibilities and the capabilities, and get feedback, to understand kind of how they're reacting to it, and like I said, we made a lot of changes in what we did just between E3 and this. So there is, I'm sure, a Doom product in there, and we're kind of molding the clay right now as to what that becomes. And I think the important thing is that we just don't think of it as a Doom port to VR. That's not the right way to go about it. It is about creating a Doom experience within VR that is made for VR. And again, we have such an awesome tool belt to work with of our assets, our engine, the world that we've created, the lore behind it. It's super exciting to have a product that just came out and people are so excited about, and then have this other kind of whole new arena that we can apply it to.
Shacknews started as a Quake fan site back in 1996, and it's been really cool to see a resurgence from id Software. You guys have a ton of momentum from Doom 2016 coming out, and I just think it's really cool to see you guys, with Quake Champions and everything else you guys are doing, really resurging at the same time we are. So it's exciting to see, and we're hopeful to keep in contact with you as you keep doing that.
Absolutely. I'm a long-time Shacknews reader. I've been in the industry about 20 years, so about as long as Shack's been around, and it's a great time to be a part of it. Doom was a huge passion project for us. We knew we had to get it right. We had a huge responsibility to the fans to get it right and to make it absolutely everything that people expected. And I think everybody feels a great sense of pride in that, but also, we want to continue with it. We want to make it better through the updates we're doing, and the multiplayer stuff, and the free stuff we're releasing for SnapMap. So we've got a lot that we still have to get out there and give. Yeah, we're already really excited about Champions as well. So it's great to talk to you. Glad you're around, and we're having a good time.
Like I said, there's so many FPS in the world, and I feel like you guys really showed everyone this is how you do single player in 2016. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate you playing, and everybody out there playing.